Hey guys, I'm gonna do a quick video. I did a video on Earth Angels and superheroes, how Earth Angels have always loved superheroes since they were kids and even into adulthood. But, well, I started noticing, even on like the Justice League and things like that, a lot of the storyline and just pretty much everything, um, a lot of it's not fake. It's different dimensions and things like that, and certain things about energy, and certain beings can get their energy from the sunlight instead of from food, and it's just I see a lot of parallels. And what's interesting is I was watching right after my awakening. I ordered one. It's a Crisis on Infinite Earths. The first one, well, the second one actually has, well, they recruited him to be a hero, but he's actually like a villain, but he's basically like an Earth Angel. He calls himself a hyper empath, where he starts explaining how when he's a little kid, he always loved his solitude, and he had a massive imagination, and he always loved not quite superheroes, but like figures like pirates and things like that. Had a big imagination, lots of solitude, loved like hero type figures, and he was called himself a hyper empath. So when he was young, especially when he was younger, he could really feel other people's feelings. He was very sensitive to energy and sensitive to other people's energies. And as he got older, he was able to start controlling his power and to start using his power. And another funny thing is too, he was born into a family that had a lot of problems. His parents would fight a lot. They ended up sending him to he had a very rough childhood. They ended up sending him to a boarding school. It takes place in Europe. He was in Britain. They sent him to a boarding school in Europe, and there was one, I'm trying to remember what country it was. One of the Germanic countries. It wasn't Germany. One of the Germanic countries in Europe. So he ends up getting beat up a lot there, and he's completely different than everyone. Typical like Earth Angel story. He's completely different. Doesn't really relate to anyone there. He starts using his powers, and he's able to control his powers. But they actually, even though they recruited him as a hero, he's basically a villain. So they basically made a character they recruited him as a hero, but he's a villain. They made him a bad guy. So he's like an Earth Angel, but he used his powers for bad. And he's able to, because he's a hyper empath, he's basically an Earth Angel. So he can help people vibrate on like a higher frequency and like get to the fifth dimension basically and have good emotions, or he can make people stay in the third dimension and have bad, nasty, negative emotions like fear and greed. He can make people not trust each other and things like that. So they end up in this movie, Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 2. They end up trying to have him broadcast to the whole universe, like peace and love, basically like the fifth dimension. But he starts freaking out, and he says he can't do it. He's used to just keeping everyone basically in the lower dimension. He's used to broadcasting fear and greed, any negative emotion, ego, any negative emotion. He's used to broadcasting that, so he starts freaking out. He says he can't do it. It's harder to broadcast the positive emotions. He's used to doing the negative emotions. And they end up giving him some extra power so that he can do it, but he ends up kind of turning on him, of course. They made him a villain for some reason. I think I know who wrote the script. A lot of a lot of anti-German propaganda in here too. So if you're fully awake, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, they made him a villain, so he ends up using that power to broadcast negative emotions and basically keep people on the third dimension. So no one trusts each other. There's lots of fear and anger and ego, and everyone starts, even the superheroes are trying to keep everything in control, but they start to distrust each other and they start to fight each other, and so he's broadcasting negative emotions. So they made a part 3, but I don't think it's out yet. But I just thought that was really interesting. It was so I was talking about like superheroes, and that kind of, it relates to Earth Angels, and it's just kind of interesting. And then right after I awaken, I end up buying this movie, and I end up watching it. And as soon as the guy starts talking, I was like, man, he sounds almost like an Earth Angel. Then he calls himself a hyper empath, and he just keeps going on. And I was like, wow, they made a character that's basically an Earth Angel, but he used his power for bad. And I just thought that was so fascinating. Another coincidence. He has so much power, he's able to either broadcast negative emotions, keep people in the third dimension, or if he wants to put out more effort, he can actually do good and help people vibrate at a higher frequency and get to the fifth dimension and help people with positive emotions. But I just, with all their different dimensions and just a lot of the things they say, I'm just realizing, man, a lot of it's like real. It's not just made up. So if you guys are into, if you guys know about Earth Angels and the fifth dimension, even just if you know about the fifth dimension, check that movie out. It's kind of interesting. Justice League, Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 2, and I think you'll find it interesting. I certainly did. Definitely, I just thought it was funny that I feel like it's linked to then superheroes and Earth Angels, and then I watched this movie. But yeah, you guys should check that movie out, and I think you'll find it interesting too. I'm gonna wrap this video up right here.